It's not crazy often I'm surprised by movies. Most of the time the trailer just spoils everything, or you just get the vibes like when I was watching the Megalopolis trailers. But I went into Speak No Evil blind with a friend, and it was high-key the greatest horror movie I've seen in a long time. The characters were well thought out, the tension was built perfectly, and the antagonist was terrifying, to say the least. I just wanted to spread the beauty of this film and just yap about why Speak No Evil is almost perfect. The first step in any good story is to set up the characters, which Speak No Evil does wonderfully. We open during dinner on vacation, where we meet our two families, the Dalton family, consisting of our protagonist Louise, Ben, and Agnes, and our antagonist Patty and Kiara, and kind of. I mean, I'll put him under the McAvoy family for clarity, but he's not an antagonist in any way. Now, good movies use everything they can to display information, whether it's visual, through dialogue, or simple shots that show a character's emotion. In just 10 minutes, we learn quite a lot about the Daltons and the McAvoys. Not actually their name, again, but it is kind of fun to say. Ben seems to be longing something he doesn't feel he has. He sees Kiara and Patty getting along quite well, dancing in their room and swimming together. He also seems extra curious when his wife Louise is on her phone. All of this comes to a head in later scenes. Louise seems to be a little annoyed about living in London. She rolls her eyes, seems upset when talking about her job, and makes remarks about the weather in London. All totally valid because who in their right mind would live in Britain, especially over the great US of A, baby? The Daltons' youngest, Agnes, is a little timid and has stress issues, which are put aside when she has her comfort bunny, Hoppy, which is the real villain of the story, if you ask me. We also get quite a bit of knowledge on James McAvoy's character, Patty. He's extremely charismatic and uses it to get what he wants. He asks for a lawn chair and gets it pretty easily. He's also very crude, puts finger guns in his mouth as a joke to signal to Ben that he'd rather die than listen to the Danish couple talk about cooking one more time. He also talks about the scrunch or fold technique, which is a way to deter the Danes away from wanting to sit with them. He also pushes many boundaries, such as convincing the Daltons to let Agnes ride the Vespa with him. All of these highlights of information culminate later in the film. Good films will pay off every little detail at some point or another, and the villains will use everything they can to rain terror on their prey. After receiving an invite to the McAvoy's farm, the Daltons make a road trip in their Tesla, yet another detail that is paid off later. In the next couple scenes, we establish the setting that we'll be stuck in for the next week. There is no cell signal, no neighbors besides the two friends Patty calls to help babysit and visit for dinner. The house has a fence with a heavy metal hydraulic opened gate, only activated by a key fob. The house is large, old, well-insulated, and most important to Patty and Kiara's operation, it's completely silent. Almost immediately, something about the farm feels off. Ant is a little jumpy when playing ball with Patty, the bedsheets are dirty, and also the goose. Libby, the prize goose, was an amazing peek into Patty's twisted brain. It's unlikely that the McAvoys just forgot that Louise was vegan. I mean, come on, it's her entire personality. If I painted a picture for how Europeans probably see America's weird side, it would turn out to be a portrait of Louise Dalton. She's vegetarian, rallies for sustainably sourced food, drives an electric vehicle, hates guns no matter the use, and is a hypocrite when it comes to telling others what to do, which we see when Kiara is telling Agnes to chew her food with her mouth closed. Patty definitely uses these traits, not just of Louise, but we're assuming, his victims prior, to break them. He tests the waters by yapping about his goose, pushes her to the edge with his charisma, and forces her to do something she doesn't like with a smug little smile. And just like that, Patty's gotten a vegetarian to eat a goose. The next day, we get a deeper look at Patty's physical side. He's easily frustrated and pulls Ant pretty hard away from the swing. We also see the bruises on Kiara's body just before they go swimming. I think it's quite interesting that Kiara said it was just, from falling off a ladder, but Patty immediately jumps to fun time in the bed the night before. The other side to Patty's mental state is just as raw animal lust. I wonder if that's why the filmmakers chose the song they did for the car ride to the ocean. Animal by Def Leppard is just about that same crazy lust. I need your touch, don't need your love, whoa. Yeah, I'm not going to actually play the audio because I'm going to get copyright striked. Anyway, this song is immediately followed by a super awkward scene of Kiara pretending to give I don't actually know what's allowed on YouTube, so I'm just going to fill this part with something different until I actually read the rules. I will probably not read the rules. Anyway, Kiara pretends to eat Patty's corn on the cob.
It's cold. A big open nose. It has to choose.
After this scene, we've seen the cracks in Patty's facade. He's violent, manipulative, lascivious, and quite charismatic. After the dinner, we find Agnes and Aunt playing hide-and-seek back at the farm. Aunt tries to show Agnes his father's watch. We don't know it's his father's until the big reveal, but he fails to put it back exactly how it was, which is probably how Patty catches on in a later scene. This ends up being the turning point, the most clear moment that something is wrong. You see on his face something like kind of snap, and he knows that Aunt is trying to inform the Daltons of Patty's treachery. After we find the watch out of place, we jump to Ben and Louise arguing about their life, and just as the intro scenes had set up, we find that Louise had received explicit pictures on her phone and that Ben feels quite insecure, for good reason, and that it explains a lot as to why the couple feels distant, as if they were barely hanging on. We also see Patty peeking through the window on the door, which he later uses this argument to help, poke the bear a little bit. After everyone's fast asleep, Louise wakes up and finds Agnes is missing. Now, for obvious reasons, the Daltons pack up and leave to head back to London. The possibility that Agnes was assaulted before falling asleep is a little high, but even if nothing happened and if Kiara is telling the truth about her motherly instincts, it's still uber unsettling finding your child in a stranger's bed, especially after seeing how Patty treats the rest of the McAvoys. So the Daltons are leaving, finally. The groundwork has been placed over the past 40 minutes to build to this moment. Patty and his home are creepy and unsettling. It only makes sense to leave. In fact, we've been rooting for them to catch on. So why the actual fuck do they turn back for Hoppy?
Excuse me, what the actual fuck are you doing in my house?
This dumbass bunny single-handedly creates every single problem for the Daltons. I remember watching this and being beyond pissed that the parents actually turned around like, bro, I don't care how sad your daughter is. No amount of crying would make me turn around for that stuffed animal. The whole theater was laughing and booing the Daltons for making such a dumb decision. But it's like, it's a little laid down, all right? I mean, they're already back at the house. Over the next couple of scenes, we get some important developments. Aunt calls Agnes a chicken after they decide to stay, after, coming back. I think the chicken remark is a reference to the barn that all of the stuff is hidden in. Aunt writes a message to Agnes and says, "Please help me escape. This place is not safe." However, it's in Danish, which is another possible reference to the first film, seeing as it's a Danish film. So she just thinks it's gibberish,
Oh, something's not right with him.
We also see Patty and Ben go hunting, which not only gives us a peek into Patty's psyche, as well as this moment I couldn't stop laughing at because it reminded me of that one meme. Patty jokes about not being a doctor and how he doesn't believe in work, even though I'm 90% sure he was being serious after finding out that him and Kiara have done these horrible things over the past few years. We also get this little throwaway line,
It's just a hobby.
Hey, don't put yourself down. That's my job.
which is interesting to say the least, but nothing we didn't already know. It's just weird that Patty is getting comfortable with showing his true colors.
That was not dancing. And go to your room.
All of this leads up to the hour mark, which is when we find out what Patty and Kiara have been doing. Aunt shows Agnes a trapdoor that leads to a basement under the chicken coop, which is where we learn everything. So much is told in the scene without saying a single word. We find out Patty and Kiara have been going on vacations, being friendly, and inviting families back to the farm before killing them and taking everything from money transfers to watches to clothes and backpacks and, well, everything in between. This beautifully written scene and the steps the film took to make it work play out so well. The music, the sound design, acting, and everything just mesh so well. It explains why we've been feeling so uneasy. It explains Anne's short tongue, the watches, the silent property, the lack of neighbors, the massive house, the metal gate only activated by the key fob. It also explains why the Daltons were chosen. They're stressed, have no neighbors or family. They're in every way cut off from everyone, meaning no one is going to miss them or go looking when they're killed by Patty and Kiara. But there's still just one teeny tiny thing that we're missing, and it's the only reason this movie cannot be perfect for me. It's what the filmmakers did with Kiara. So just before the final scene with the McAvoys, Kiara asked them to help her because she was the first, as in the first person kidnapped. Kiara has more than likely been groomed, at what age we don't know, but groomed nonetheless.
Louise, I was his first. I was Agnes's age.
It makes sense as why she stays by Patty's side until her death, because she's been conditioned to caring for him, as well as being scared shitless of him. When she's hunting down Dalton, she doesn't even seem to enjoy it, just going along with it. And the only reason she was spared in the cellar room to begin with was because she came on to Patty, because it's the only thing that calms him down. What doesn't make sense is why the Daltons never even tried to help her, or why they didn't just kill Patty right then and there when they had the double-barrel shotgun, pointed at his head. What I personally would have liked is some sympathy for Kiara. I also think a deeper dive into her side of things would have been great. Perhaps one of the first pictures in the book that's in the cellar would have been a picture of Patty and Kiara. This would have set up the Daltons to know ahead of time whether or not they should spare Kiara as well as Aunt. It would have been cool if Kiara was sent to the police in the end, the Daltons informing them that she needs therapy and a different kind of treatment than just prison. Kiara not getting this ending was the only thing that it just didn't quite sit right with me. She's gone through all this pain that Aunt has, plus extra because she's getting sexually assaulted as well. I do also see that would have messed up the pacing of the film just a little bit, and there definitely would have needed to have been a little more setup prior to than just a line at the end. Moving along to the finale, do you guys remember that Tesla that I mentioned at the very beginning? Well, the car was thought through as well. First of all, it fits Louise's personality, but also it doesn't have a spare. Most other cars, including but not limited to the based Ford Crown Victoria, have a spare somewhere on or under the vehicle. But not the Tesla, something I had to Google up, and it's yet another reason I hate this ugly electric vehicle. This makes it the perfect candidate to build tension. Patty put a nail in the tire, so it had to be patched, getting Ben alone, which makes us think he's dead for sure, but nothing happens. Ben then has to climb a short ladder, and you guessed it, that goddamn bunny. I'm telling you guys, this bunny is evil, okay? It's maniacal, it has absolutely no soul. But at least this time it wasn't the Daltons being stupid, it was Patty being smart, using their own words against them, stalling time for his friend to get there. The final stand is nearly 40 minutes. We've built this up for an hour and 10 minutes, so
Get your spectral sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
we got fake-out shots with mirrors breaking. We got Patty screaming because he got acid on his face. We got gunshots, failed Molotov throws, car explosions, broken bones, and so much more. Everything was paid off in the finale. The breathing app was used to divert Patty's attention. The blade Louise grabbed was used. The hammer that Ben eyeballed was used. The sedation drug that was grabbed by Agnes was also used. But perhaps the best bit of payoff was Patty's death. Just as he was probably taught, Aunt released his stress with anger. It parallels the hilltop scene between Ben and Patty from earlier in the film, screaming at the top of their lungs, releasing every bit of anger within them. Of course, Aunt's still going to need some therapy, as well as the rest of the Dalton family. I'm glad out of everyone, Aunt was the one who delivered the final blow, or blows, to Patty. It's unbelievably satisfying, yet also kind of disturbing, sitting there as the music swells, and this charismatic maniac gets his face squished by a little brick. This is what I want from movies. Everything coming together to create the most outstanding experience. Every rewatch better than the one it followed. Details paid off for keen-eyed viewers. Movies are a form of art that utilize every medium, so when these mediums are used well, you just have to applaud it. The cinematography, the acting, the props in the set, the costumes, and most importantly, the script all come together in Speak No Evil to create a near masterpiece. I haven't seen a horror film this tight since The Thing, everything being used to build tension between the audience and the characters on the screen. The acting, among other things, sells the much-needed dread. This movie slaps on another level, and if you haven't checked it out yet, give it a shot. You'll be blown away, I promise. And even if you aren't surprised, your own opinion will always, sometimes, be more important than mine. I've got 2 different video ideas for next time. I'll just have to see which one is ready.